All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. We'll start with a roll call. Holly Bloodworth here. Mike Borchers.
Here.
Preston Graham.
Here.
Justin Pate.
Here.
Julie Pyle. Oh, Julie's not here. Lee Todd.
Here.
And we're happy to have you, Secretary Link.
I'll just go where Lee Todd is.
Well, we're happy to have you. All right. So today we are excited. We've heard so much about literacy, but numeracy is now coming into view, right? So we're excited to hear from Mickey Ray and her team here about numeracy counts. All right.
Thank you so much, Chair. We are happy to be here today to be able to engage in discussion around mathematics. Previously, the agency has received about $30 million for efforts around early literacy. And with the addition of the Kentucky Numeracy Counts Act, we now have approximately $10 million to advance our efforts in mathematics. The specific funding for this legislation that we're reviewing today is at $5 million each year over the next biennium. But I will say from the beginning, while we are very fortunate for that amount, I know that Robin will say we will likely ask for additional funding to support the work associated with this. But I'm happy to be welcomed today by Dr. Jennifer Fraley. So she has been at the agency since July 1 as our Director of Mathematics Education. And so this is a new position. She will have direct support and oversight to districts in helping to implement the language of the legislation. And so the first part of this, I'm just going to walk you through some of the high points of the act, and then we'll welcome questions, and you may have some questions for Dr. Fraley as well. So on the first slide, I wanted to elevate, in Section 1, it really establishes the goals of the Kentucky Numeracy Counts Act. And you can see there that first bullet, and this is direct language from the law. Mathematics proficiency is essential for all Kentucky students to achieve the academic goals established in 158.6451. And I think the main takeaway goes back to what we've already discussed. So this is not only a K through 12 issue. This is ultimately a P20 issue and beyond. Like, students need proficiency in mathematics to excel, not only in college, but certainly in career and in life in general. And so we're hoping that the emphasis on numeracy will allow us to elevate supports to districts to help them to better serve students in the math space specifically. You can see there that the focus of the bill is on both procedural skill and fluency, as well as building conceptual knowledge and application. So if we cannot apply this to real world situations, then we are not serving our students in the way that we would ultimately hope. And then lastly, there is a piece connected to MTSS, so that multi-tiered system of supports. It does acknowledge that there should be support for struggling learners K-12 related to evidence-based mathematics instruction, intervention, and enrichment supports that should exist for students to ensure that they have accelerated supports. On the next slide, it's going to go into Section 2.1. And so I wanted you to see this, and I'll speak to where we are with this for the moment. It says all students in kindergarten through grade 3 needing to make accelerated progress toward proficiency, that should be based on valid and reliable universal screening and diagnostics. So one of the first things that Dr. Fraley has started to do, if you're aware of our Read to Succeed efforts, you know that we have on the KBE website, there's a list of valid and reliable screeners and diagnostics for early literacy. It was an extensive review process. Vendors are able to submit their screeners and diagnostics, but they must meet the selection criteria. And we look at classification accuracy, validity, and reliability. And the point of all of that, we want districts to be assured if they make an adoption that they're going to have valid and reliable results that they can take action on in both instruction and in intervention. So the validity and reliability is huge there. So Dr. Fraley is going to proactively, she'll be reaching out to some of the vendors that we can see from the National Center on Intensive Intervention. So they report on classification accuracy, validity, and reliability. She's going to proactively start reaching out just to get the vendors aware, in two specific ones that we tend to mention. So NWEA MAP growth, should meet, based on their current technical manual, should meet the requirements, and iReady for mathematics should as well. And that's significant because 70% of districts are already using both of those mechanisms. So we are hopeful that they will be able to utilize those partnerships that they already have in place. But we also want to make sure that we're inclusive of other providers that would meet the qualifications that this is based on local control and what the superintendent deems as being the best option to move forward. The formal process will begin in November, and that's going to mirror what we do for early literacy. So we wanted coherence there for the field, we wanted coherence for the vendor providers, and our goal is that we will have a list published in the winter, spring of 2025. And that's significant because superintendents have to make their selection by January 1 of 2026. So we would really like to have a year runway for superintendents and their teams to be able to make the best possible selection for their students. So that's the first component I wanted to hit on today. On the next slide, you'll see transitions to the supports provided for the individual student. So if a student is not on track to meet benchmark based on the screener and the diagnostic, they, like our early literacy support, should be given an improvement plan. And so they will deserve extra access to really intentional instruction at Tier 1, but also for some of those students, extra supports at Tier 2 and at Tier 3. You can see there that information on encouraging mathematics success is also provided for parents and families. So like we have a read at home plan for early literacy, Dr. Fraley will be working on providing supports for not read at home, but mathematics at home for parents and families as well. So we're looking forward to that. We know that we will be able to utilize partners in building out those at home supports, and I'll speak to our current partners when we move to the next slide. So this is what I am most excited about, and I realize it comes from a very biased perspective, but the language of the law allows us as the KBE to move forward with statewide supports well in advance of the implementation requirements being placed on local districts. So we have already started working to contract with partners who have proven data across our state. So, with early literacy, we initiated the statewide supports with the LETRS professional learning specifically. That was a national provider. There are numerous states who are engaging with LETRS, and thankfully, the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive about the impact of that professional learning and the teacher's ability to be able to translate that into classroom instruction. It will look different for mathematics. We're not looking for a cookie cutter model. We're looking for the best model and the best framework to support students for mathematics specifically. So we will be partnering with Advanced Kentucky. I know many of you are familiar with Advanced Kentucky. Executive Director Anthony Myers is supporting us in building out a plan, an implementation plan to increase access to their access to algebra programming. So that will focus on grades 6 through 8. They provide professional learning to teachers. They have supplemental supports for classroom instruction that would align with the adopted high-quality instructional resource that districts have adopted. And there are extra supports for students that Advanced Kentucky provides to their partner districts. So that may take the shape of a Saturday training. It might be after school, before or after school supports for students. So they are truly a sort of a well-oiled machine, and we're looking to partner with them to expand what they're already doing with some districts across the state. Another key partner is the Kentucky Center for Mathematics. So Executive Director Kelly DeLong has been leading that center for several years, and we're looking to partner with KCM, an acronym there, to be able to build out both asynchronous professional learning supports as well as synchronous experiences where teachers can come together and talk about their learning. So that will mirror LETRS, just in the sense that there will be both asynchronous learning experiences and opportunities for either virtual, online, or in-person engagement and collaboration with teachers via KCM. So we're excited about that. One of the critical components of that, if you're familiar with Dr. Jenny Bay Williams, she is from Kentucky, but she is a national leader in the mathematics space, and she has a math fact fluency professional learning that has been again, very positively received. And I know Dr. Fraley has experienced that learning and can speak to the value out of that as well. One other component for coherence, over and over again, we're hearing about the significance of the building administrator, the building principal, and being able to support teachers in implementing evidence-based strategies. So we will be partnering with PIMSR to provide administrative support. And so Kim Zeidler at PIMSR will focus on not only alignment to the Kentucky Academic Standards for Mathematics, but she too has been speaking to the significance of high-quality instructional resources, supporting building leaders in understanding, especially if they don't have a math background, how to support teachers in implementing the curriculum, walk through instruments and feedback for growth and mentoring of teachers. So we're very excited about what Kim and PIMSR will be bringing to this conversation as well. And another great thing I want to mention, so our 3 partners in PIMSR, KCM, and Advanced Kentucky are already in conversations together to ensure the coherence across all 3 initiatives. There's one other pilot program that I want to mention. So EPIC at Greg Ed, they are partnering with Carnegie, and they're going to be piloting the patterns coursework that's provided through Carnegie. They're going to be serving 200 teachers, so they can serve up to 200 teachers for elementary and up to 200 teachers for the elementary space. And for that, I think it's a wise step forward. I have heard good things about patterns, but I want to ensure that the investment that we're making with these resources is something that is both meaningful, relevant, and actionable for teachers. So we're starting small with that one, and we'll be looking for the feedback both from EPIC as well as the teachers who will be participating in that program. So it's very exciting, but it is different, and so we will need to communicate sort of a menu of options versus with the early literacy work, we really were rolling out one primary professional learning. So this does look a bit different, but I feel as if it's appropriate knowing what we know about the nuance of mathematics education and what those different providers can bring to the table for schools and districts. On the next slide, you can see we also have the responsibility of rolling out a new grant program. So the Kentucky Numeracy Counts Act requires for K-3 that districts make a purchase of a comprehensive, valid and reliable mathematics curriculum. And so those instructional resources are costly. I know everyone understands that, but even more important, the professional learning that needs to be provided in association with that resource is very costly. So the grant program will allow us to come alongside of districts. You can see there is some specific prioritization for districts, and we will absolutely honor that in terms of the rubric and the scoring, but we're hoping to help as many districts as we can possibly can to mitigate some of the high costs around the adoptions of those resources and curriculum-based professional learning. The next slide. So at this time, I would love to take any questions you may have, either for myself or Dr. Fraley. We are very excited to have this moment to be able to bring forward some additional supports in the area of mathematics in a way that we've not been able to do prior to this point for our state. Yes, please.
I apologize that one time you have a new board member come on, so I feel like you take another job.
No.
Yeah, I just got to get back. It's been almost 20 years since I've been in KBE. So, it's all preparation for real world. Real world's very ambiguous. Thank you. Meaning a lot of different things to a lot of different people. How many different tracks, if that's the right word, of mathematics do we have, along this journey of K-12, particularly probably in the high school? But do we have identified tracks of outcome goals and mathematic needs as ascribed to those particular goals?
So I'll start, and then Dr. Fraley, if there's anything you want to add. So we do have the Kentucky Academic Standards for Mathematics, and that's a K-12 document. It's just foundational learning goals at each grade level. But what the good thing is that when districts are utilizing the universal screener and the diagnostics, MAP growth, for example, they can have a pretty direct correlation of this is where our students are, if they're meeting benchmark, and how well they are mastering or attaining the grade level standards for mathematics per that grade and or grade band. We also have identified course codes. So you would see, that's a local district decision, but what we're really advocating for is access to more rigorous mathematics at middle school. So that's where we're seeing just a gap, an area of need. And that's where many of our partners will also come into play. But we have really an equity issue for students at the middle school space that are not equipped with access to more rigorous mathematics. They may be getting the 8th grade mathematics content, but if they're wanting to take really advanced mathematics, they cannot fit that into their schedules at the high school level without having been exposed to Algebra 1 as an example in the 8th grade. So there are some complexities because of the systems and structures that we're really trying to push on to ensure that students at middle school have access to advanced mathematics.
Well, and that was really, my question wasn't so much on grade level as those options within grade levels. For instance, measurement and instrumentation is much more important to somebody, with an industrial kind of mindset moving forward, as more calculus-based engineering type of end goals, do require, as you step back, different tracks. So even with healthcare, IT, there's variance. That's what I was wondering. How much of that do we incorporate along these tracks?
That's really like a local district decision, and different districts do different things. I'm just most recently from a district, and we are offering some construction math and some medical math, some things that were more relevant to our students. As we look at our students and say, where are you going? What is your plan? And we sit down and have those individual meetings with kids, and we know what their goals are, then we try to make sure that our course taking patterns match that and that we have those opportunities. And the department offered us a chance last year to even be part of an initiative around badging for mathematics, where kids could actually earn micro-credentials as they demonstrate particular skills in Algebra 1. So moving more at their own pace, but really about how they show that knowledge of Algebra 1 in relevant real-world ways. So it might be, using some aspects of construction and cutting rafters and things like that. They show that in they're working on a tiny house in their vocational program, and then they're able to show that connection of, I know how to cut birdmouth rafters, and I'm going to show you how to do it, and video themselves doing that, make that connection to those math standards, and then they're showing their learning in real life ways. So districts have that flexibility.
One other thing I do want to add as a point of clarification. So the regulation that we just amended today, so 3305 is the minimum high school graduation reg. There are 4 required math credits for high school graduation, Algebra 1 and geometry being 2 foundational. So what happens is if a student is able to take that at the middle school level and score a C, I believe, or higher, is it a B or a C? Okay. So then they would be able to allow that to count for their high school credit. Now the student might decide they want to retake that course, but there's state law that allows them to do that at the middle school, but the students aren't engaging in that as much. The other 2 would be 2 personalized mathematics credits, and I think that's getting really at what you're speaking to. So it would allow for more diversification in what those final 2 courses would be.
So every student has to take Algebra 1?
Every student must take Algebra 1 and geometry.
Or some course that includes that content.
Yes.
It may not be called Algebra 1, but it has to be.
Yes. But those standards must be woven into the course content. Yes, Preston, please.
Perfect. So I just wanted, not necessarily a question, but I just wanted to address my personal experience as I took geometry in 8th grade as a middle schooler. So I have been benefacting from those advanced middle school placement courses. And one thing I've noticed is Woodford is we've had students transfer in from other districts who haven't had the opportunity to take the highest tier of mathematics. So we have kids that are transferring in that are probably smart enough to take the highest tier, but since they come from middle schools that didn't necessarily allow for them to take 10th grade math in 8th grade, they are stuck in a year below than they probably could be.
Sure.
And that leaves them either to stay there or leads them to have to stay or take 2 math classes in 1 year, which I know personally a few friends who have had to do that, and it was pretty rough from them, because you're talking about doing 9th grade math and the year ahead of that
Yes,
math simultaneously, which is a struggle. And kind of unfortunately, Woodford we used to have the opportunity to take 8th grade math as soon as 6th grade, but along with 7th grade math in 6th grade, unfortunately we have, for some reason, I don't personally know the reason, but gotten rid of the 8th grade math in 6th grade, so my class is actually the last to have gotten to take that opportunity. So my personal experience with advanced mathematics in middle school.
And I'm glad that you did have access to that experience, and it has been a good one. And I do want to say, though, in the defense of local districts, the highest shortage area is middle school mathematics, and so there's certification issues. There are, a lack of highly trained and qualified teachers for that area. So we hope that as we're able to move forward with the implementation of the Kentucky Numeracy Counts Act, we can attract more teachers to the field as well to allow more students to have these opportunities. Yes,
Yeah,
please.
just a couple things as we move forward. A, the way you rolled out the reading with the letters, I would 100% agree. The feedback's been great.
Yes, thank you.
I guess the challenge would be to do something, I know it's going to be hard, but to do something similar, because when you talk down here, it was kind of an afterthought, but when you talk about the administrative support,
Yes, sir.
you can have all these great programs if your administrator doesn't work with your staff to ensure that. And we're asking the administrators to get very in-depth with the reading and the writing, and now all of a sudden the math fall.
At this
And I know you've heard that. I've been in
I know,
meetings where
I
you've
know.
heard that. But I really think beyond the teachers, we have to think of the administrators as well, because if they're not able to give the support, the teachers are going to struggle. Another thing over my years, and I think, and this is not any kind of negativity, but I think a lot of early elementary teachers, they never really focus a lot in their education on the mathematics. They take a math course, but they don't take this. So I know when this was sent out, letters was like, this is this comprehensive program. I would recommend if we could do something that was comprehensive, and then especially when you talked about middle school, and we said, like maybe some weekend, that needs to be that comprehensive type. I know that's a big ask, but those folks, like you said, are, I can say this because I have a math degree. I was a math teacher by trade, and when you talk about the requirements, you're asking people to come out that have math degrees.
Yes, sir.
Well, they're teaching 6th, 7th, pre-algebra, algebra. They're taking multivariable. They need to be brought back into the pedagogy of what really needs to be taught for the kids. And then my last soapbox thing is the screeners, and it goes back into the assessment piece too.
Yes.
We are asking teachers and administrators to go through screeners that they're required now to do, to get in depth in all of that, and they're taking a state standalone test, and the correlation with all of that. I think if we could be smart in how we design things, we need to design a one ticket that can take care of several things for our teachers. And I think it'll benefit our kids in instruction down the road. If you're an elementary teacher right now, and I was an old high school teacher, but you're talking letters training, a diagnostic here, a diagnostic there. Then we're getting ready for the state assessment. That in and of it, and then we talk about all the mental health and all the other things that have to be met before we even get into that.
Exactly.
We need to simplify that, and we're not watering it down. It's just as simplifying the ability to make our teachers and our administrators have the ability and have that toolkit where they're not trying to do 6 toolkits, but it's 1 or 2, and they get really honed in on that and can be very good. The letters training was probably the best training I think our teachers have had in 15 years. And it was in depth, it was rigorous, it was difficult. Sometimes I had teachers crying. but on the back end, I think we'll see those results.
I agree.
But even with that, we took a great deal off of our teachers' plates the years we were training them. And I think we as a state need to look at that as well, because it just seems like we're over testing. You know, I hear, talking about the trades, we have kids that are great in that, but they got to learn the basics to be able to do those things. But, we have kids we're trying to meet to get algebra in 8th grade, and some of our kids aren't even getting the basics because we're trying to skip ahead so fast. So if there was more like that, a 2-track, and this is the way this goes, and this is the way this is able to go, I think the districts would really welcome that, being just from outside. And then I know there's regulations, and I know when we get things from the legislators, we have to do that. I don't disagree. But I think if we can really stream down what we're asking our teachers to do, and it's not watering it down, it's just giving, and we got to be careful of saying the state's forcing us to do certain things, because I know that. But maybe it is that, there's the Renaissance Star, there's the map, there's the iReady. If you become one of those, maybe that's where the next answer is I'm going to be an iReady district. And that's my diagnostic. And we look at the percent, versus just this one shop, that part of it, to allow the districts to really learn. So I'll shut up now. I'm sorry.
And Mr. Borchers, I will say, I think that Commissioner Fletcher would agree with you. And I think that I know that it's so early on, and there's much to be done in terms of conversations with USAID, but I think that his vision for those through course assessments would serve to simplify in the way that you're describing. And he too has a math background, so he is very interested in our numeracy work, and I welcome that. I'm grateful for his participation, and really, Dr. Faley and I will be meeting with Dr. Fletcher soon just to hear more about his vision for the work, and I suspect that he will be in line with your messaging as well.
That's scary.
So the literacy work has been very successful. So what lessons did you learn from that you're applying to this numeracy work?
So a few things, I think the critical piece with PIMSR and PIMSR's collaboration with the other partners to ensure that the administrator focus is there is huge. And we have heard that over and over again in our early literacy work. And I'll be honest in saying in the Office of Teaching and Learning, we have people who are certified administrators, but we don't have as many active folks who have lived experience in that space. Now, that is not true of Dr. Fraley, and that's what she brings to the table. Christy Biggerstaff has lived experience in that role, and so I feel it's imperative for us to be surrounded by folks who have that lived experience. So that's one change. Another thing that we're looking to do, we're in the process of doing, we're building out regional principal supports leaders, and so they will be working with principals within their regions to build relationship, to provide support for both Read to Succeed and the Numeracy Act. I will say that part of the issue is we had to wait to try to secure those positions really close to the start of school. And so I think we're going to have to keep trying to curate some of those roles. But I'm very excited about its potential. And that, to me, is the biggest lessons learned. We have to ensure that we're involving those administrators for the good of teachers, ultimately for the good of the students that they serve.
So do you see this work evolving toward coaches like you have in literacy?
So the law actually states that if funding is available, we would be empowering coaches. Now, on the separate pot of money, that there's the $5 million that goes to the Mathematics Achievement Fund grant, and they provide a coaching grant model. So I don't think, and again, it's very early stages, so I don't want to say one thing and then later switch our position, but in full transparency, we knew with our literacy coaches, we did have the capacity to hire literacy coaches, state level coaches, and place those in districts with greatest need. I think for mathematics, due to the lack of mathematics teachers who have availability, I think we'll have to expand more of that MAF model where we empower a local coach. So we provide professional learning to that coach. We work with district leaders in building administrators and empowering the coach, and then that coach must serve at least 50% of the teachers within that building. So it could look something like that, but that is the area, when I said I would be seeking additional funding, I don't feel that with the initial $5 million, we do have the funds to be able to move forward with a coaching model. But I believe, and I think that there's a research basis to suggest that school-based coaches make a significant influence on the outcomes of and the experiences for students and teachers in that building. So we would love to be able to move forward with coaches if funding becomes available. But MAF is serving as a pilot of sorts for that, and they are seeing great outcomes after the first 2 years of the initial 4-year grant program. So it's exciting.
When was Letters first funded?
So we actually were able to utilize $10 million, Dr. Todd, of our ESSER ARP funding, and that was, we had the support of OFO and the commissioner at the time. We did not know that Read to Succeed would pass in 2022, but we knew that there was great opportunity within that training, and so we made that investment at the KDE, and now it's sustainable through the Read to Succeed Fund.
I guess I was wondering where did the initiative come from to push this math literacy? Was that from KDE? Was it from the legislature? Or?
I would say, and I think Representative Tipton would say, that it was a partnership. It really was. We had made a database decision. Like, we had identified grades 4 through 8 as being a critical area of need. And Rep. Tipton initially took that forward for discussion, I believe at an interim joint meeting prior to the 2024 session. And so we were able to discuss that. But he heard from other folks in the field that foundational mathematics is critical. So the legislation was tweaked a bit to ensure that K-3 was also supported.
Because 2 years is great, but you need to feel like there's some sustainable funding.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because it's a great need that we have, and I do agree with having these master teachers or coaches or whatever available. You got to have some way to touch up these teachers who have 10,000 other things to do to give them some support. And back to the administrators. Years ago, when Tom Boyson was here, we got a grant to do some Appalachian work, and the people who were doing the work would come back and say, well, this superintendent's not buying into this or whatever. We say, well, just drop them, go to the next one then, because we didn't have enough money to do everybody. But you got to have people who are willing to take it on, but they do need help too, because
Absolutely.
men don't have that background. So I think it's great you've got the Letters model to follow, but you've also got somebody like Tipton that's pushing this and being a partner with you to keep the funding going. So.
Absolutely. Thank you. Dr. Farley, was there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I will just say that I think what Mr. Borchers brought up is a very relevant point about the fact that our early elementary teachers, they have a lot going on because they're in most cases teaching everything. They're teaching the math, they're teaching the reading, they're teaching everything. And so this has to be simple. And I think the Letters, while it's intensive training, it does help simplify literacy instruction a little bit. It gives teachers a starting point. It helps them know how to use that universal screener, how to use that diagnostic data to make good decisions so that we're not wasting our time. And I think that was a real takeaway that I took because I participated in Letters in the district. That was a real takeaway that I took from that. And another piece that I took away from it and that was really important was that involvement of families. We heard Terry Brooks say today how it scared him when he had to help his grandchild with math. That's a common issue. We don't mind to sit down and read with our kids for the most part. Most people don't. But when they bring in that math and it's like, oh no, it's that new math, that's when everybody gets scared. And so, yeah, I'm not a math person. Yeah, or they'll say their child gets it honestly because I'm not a math person. Well, there's not a math gene, so everybody's capable of doing math. Being able to help with that, the Jenny Mae Williams that Mickey spoke about, I had the opportunity to participate in her training, and it really was eye-opening about how we have to get into the minds of kids to understand what they're thinking, to understand that numeracy. How did you get to 10? And then that way we can figure out where their roadblocks are. So that training is wonderful, and to have her as a partner and be able to embed that knowledge in our teacher academies, but also our administrator academies, because administrators have to help these teachers get better. And if they don't know how to do that, then, that's a teacher's next step. When they're struggling, who do they go to? They'll go to their principal or go to their instructional support person. So how do we build that capacity? So I think those are some big pieces that we kind of took away from letters that really stick out in my mind, as we've got to make sure that we don't lose out on that key learning that we're getting, because that work is phenomenal. And then how do we translate that over to math? We are trying to be very proactive and get this work moving quickly ahead of timelines. And I think districts will appreciate that. I think that whole idea of looking at those screeners that are already ticking the boxes for literacy, the iReady, the MAP, if you look at the National Center for Intensive Interventions, those are rated highly for math too. So our districts, who have really latched on to those assessments, they won't have to look for something else. I feel confident those will meet all the boxes with partially or convincing evidence that they're providing us the right classification data, the right reliability data, the right validity data. So that will be something that they can take a breath on and say, phew, I'm glad I don't have to go searching for another one. We've already got that. So this is exciting work. It has been needed for a long, long time. The budget is a little worrisome, when you're talking about trying to get high quality instructional resources into the hands of districts, and that's a little worrisome, but we're starting early, and we're gonna do it well so that there will be more money coming. So.
And then one final piece, if I may. So I wanted to mention the support that we have from Ed Prep programs as well. So Dr. Melissa Diebel in the Office of Educator Licensure and Effectiveness, she has a working group. Chair Bloodworth is on the literacy working group. She is building out a working group of mathematics professors as well to really start thinking about, okay, should we be making changes maybe to methods coursework, or walk through instruments for student placements around some of this. So we're trying to be as proactive as possible and listen to the voices of higher ed and the expertise that lives there in order to align vision and initiatives for mathematics as well. So that's exciting.
Where do the co-ops fit into this rollout?
So obviously Greg Ed has a very clear delineation with EPIC and the pilot program that they're doing. But we have been supporting the co-ops, and we had ESSER ARP funding to be able to partner with them around high quality instructional resources, really being able to support districts in making the best selections and adoptions. And then once they have adopted, how they can support teachers in PLC environments and other things to do unit and lesson internalization. I also think, Dr. Todd, that we'll be able to utilize co-op support around our networking for mathematics educators, for administrators, instructional supervisors, so that at minimum they help to spread information, but I believe that they will engage much more so eventually in the professional learning part of this as well.
This is a place where you think the portrait of a graduate could play a role to put some pressure on the co-ops to adopt some of these things.
Absolutely.
And my last question I had is, where do the science standards fit? What grade levels are those written for? Because I know, I was just speaking a few minutes ago, there's an engineering component to that, and not many teachers know much about engineering. And they need to, I went to a science fair years ago when I was still a student, and this one grandmother said, my grandson wants to be an engineer, he loves to take things apart. I said, well, two things, can you put them back together? And does he like mathematics?
There we go.
Because math is so vital to that engineering standard that's sitting over there in this science standard. So I don't know what overlap there might be.
So our Kentucky Academic Standards for Science are also K-12, and that engineering strand is K-12 as well. So, we are really encouraging districts to take a look at, again, externally validated resources such as Open SciEd. There are a lot of project-based learning mechanisms that bridge math standards and our science standards together, and I think that's where we tap into the vibrant experiences that we would want to see, not just a stop and drop fun activity, but true project-based learning that's grounded in the academic content and will allow for that transference and application for students in a way that you could not get in an old school math textbook.
Are there other questions? All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank
It's
you.
exciting to see this work continuing into math, and we appreciate your presentation. It helps us know what's going on and out in the field, and so we can be supportive and we can talk about those things.
Thank you.
So thank you, and especially because I'm involved in the educator prep work, I just see how important those bridges are.
Yes.
Because if we don't have teachers coming into the field that are ready to hit the ground, they will have missed the letters training.
Yes.
So we need to get them ready to enter.
Yes.
So thank
Great.
you for that.
Thank you. Thank you all.
All right, so we need a motion now to adjourn for lunch. All right. Who made it? Oh, thank you. All right, in a second. Thank you so much. All in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you all.